Is it possible to go into reverse when you're going at high speeds? So more and more of you have been asking lots of questions, and I'm going to answer them on this video. And if you have any questions yourself, put them in the comments and I'll try to answer them on the next video. So somebody asked, can you bring the clutch up while pressing the brakes? Because when they do it, the car shudders. So this is when you're moving off on a hill, and the answer is yes, you can lift the clutch up when you're on the brake. If your car's shuddering, it means you're doing it too high up on the clutch, and I'll show you what I mean. So this is how you do it the wrong way. Let me show you the wrong way first. So let's say you're trying to move off on the hill. I'm just not going to go into the road, and we're just using the foot brake technique. We've got the handbrake down, and I'm trying to use the foot brake technique. The reason why the car's shuddering when you're doing it is because you're lifting it way too high up. So once you start bringing the clutch up and you hear a bit of noise, and the car rumbles a little bit, vibrates a tiny bit, that's enough for the car to move off. Once, let's say you're trying to move off now, once you come off the brake, the car shouldn't roll back and you should start moving forward a bit. The reason why the car's shuddering when you're doing it is because you're lifting the clutch up way too high up. So if you bring it way too high like there, the car starts making lots of noise and it's shuddering because it's trying to move, it's really trying to move now, but the brake is still on. So to avoid that, don't bring it that high up. Just bring it just a tiny bit to the biting point. Once the car starts rumbling a tiny bit, it's enough for the car to move. There's enough energy there, so when you come off the brake, the car either is going to go forward a bit or it's going to stay still. It's not going to roll back. If you don't do it enough though, then it's going to roll backwards, and I'll show you what I mean. So let's say you're trying to use the foot brake technique, and then you bring the clutch up a little bit, and it's there, it's got a little kick from the revs, but it's not high, and I can't feel any vibrations from the car. If I let go of the brake now, there's a strong chance that it's going to roll backwards. Let me show you. So if I come off the brake, you see it rolls back because it's not high enough. Yeah, it was too low. What you want it to do is vibrate a little bit, make the car shake a little bit, not too much, just a little shake, and that way you know you've got enough of, and that way you will know you've got enough power, and then you can just come off the brake. And if it's not moving, then you bring up the clutch a tiny bit higher, and it will start to go forward. Somebody asked, how do you shift gears going downhill? Now, what you want to do is actually use the brakes when you're going downhill, and then just gently braking, and then clutch down, go into this gear that you need, bring the clutch up, and then ease off the brake. Sometimes you might still need to keep braking to keep your speed down, but in the first place, you want to make sure you're braking a bit first so that you don't lose control of your speed. I'll show you what happens if you don't brake as you're doing this. So if you're going downhill and you don't use the brakes as you're gearing up, what will happen is when you press the clutch down, the car will start to pick up more and more speed, and it's going to go quite fast. Before you know it, it might go too fast. So to control it, when you're changing gears, you brake a little bit first and then gear up. Once you're in the gear that you want, you lift the clutch up and then you ease off the brake. That way you're controlling your speed and you're not going too fast. Somebody asked, why do we brake first before you press the clutch down? Now when you come into a stop, if you're in any higher gear than first gear, you should brake first. I'll show you what happens when you clutch first before you brake. So let's say I'm trying to stop by that van there. If I put my clutch down first, the car's not really slowing down. This is just coasting along the way, and it's not slowing down at all. It's picking up too much speed, and then I'll need to brake really hard for it to come to a stop, and that's not the best way to stop if you're in second gear or higher. If I want to come to a stop, I'll check my mirror and I'll start braking first, bring my speed down. Once my RPMs are quite low, like around 1000, then I'll put my clutch down and I'll come to a nice smooth stop and secure the car that way. If I'm in first gear though, I would need to press the clutch first, and I'll show you why. So let's say I'm driving slowly in first gear, and if I wanted to stop right now, if I was to press the brake first, let's say I want to stop here, you see, you don't get enough time before the car stalls. So to prevent that from happening, in first gear, you'd press the clutch first, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm moving slowly in first gear, and I want to come to a stop. This time, instead of braking first, I'm going to clutch first. So I'll put the clutch down first, and then brake gently. You see the revs don't go below 1000, they still stay the same, and that way, it's a nice smooth stop without stalling. So some of you are having a discussion about stalling, and somebody mentioned that, oh, because you're in reverse, it's not going to stall. Which got me thinking, I've never actually stalled in reverse, and I started thinking, is it possible to stall in reverse? So I'm going to find out now. So the reason why you stall most of the time is if you are moving off too quickly. So if you bring up the clutch too fast, that's how you stall. So I'll show you in first gear what happens if you bring up the clutch too fast. So when you're trying to move off in first gear, if you do like that, that's how you stall. So now the car's off, it's stalled. If in reverse now, I've never actually done this before, so I don't know what's going to happen. Let's see if you can stall in reverse. So make sure it's safe first and bring the clutch up. And yeah, the answer is yes. You can stall in reverse. So make sure you don't do it too fast like that. So when you're trying to reverse smoothly without stalling, you're going to make sure you're still doing it the correct way, which is just bringing the clutch up a little bit like that. And that way, you're not going to stall, you're going to move off smoothly. So somebody asked, what makes a car jump when you downshift? So when you downshift or gear down, the reason why the car is jumping is because you are either at the wrong speed or you're lifting the clutch up too quickly. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say we're in second, you want to go into first gear, yeah? I'm going to show you the wrong way first. So right now, this is too fast for first gear. I'm doing about just over 10 miles an hour. And if I go into first gear and I bring the clutch up like that, you see, it's going to jump. I'm going to do the same thing again, but I'll do it properly this time. So let's say I want to go into first gear. First of all, I'm going to make sure I'm doing the correct gear for that, which is around 10 miles an hour or less. And then I'll get into first gear. And instead of bringing the clutch up really fast, I'm going to bring up gently like that. That way, you see, you don't get that jump because it's the right speed for first gear. And I brought the clutch up smoothly as well. So if you do those two things right, the car shouldn't jump when you downshift. Somebody asked, can you do gas first and clutch when you're going uphill? So with the gas first technique that I showed you before, if you're going uphill, you're going to have to use the handbrake as well. If you're doing gas first without the handbrake on a hill, this is what happens. So let's say I try to go for the gas first. You see the car rolls back straight away because there's no power from the clutch. The clutch is not the biting point, so there's nothing stopping it from rolling backwards. If you do it the handbrake, then you can do gas first. So handbrake on, put in a bit of gas until the RPM's around 1,500, and then you can bring the clutch up. When it's safe, handbrake down, and then smoothly bring the clutch up. So if you want to use the gas first technique without using the handbrake, that only works when it's flat. If it's on a hill, you're going to have to use the handbrake as well. If you don't want to use the handbrake and you just want to use the pedals, you can still do that, but you can't do gas first. You'd have to bring the clutch up first at the biting point, look around, make sure it's safe, and then add gas afterwards, because now you've already got the clutch at the right point to stop the car rolling backwards, which is at the biting point just there. And then when you're ready, you're adding some gas to give it a bit more power so you can move off smoothly. Somebody asked, is it possible to go into reverse when you're going at high speeds? So right now I'm not going that fast. I'm going about 20 miles an hour, and I'm going to show you what happens if you try to go into reverse at this sort of speeds or even higher. This actually happened on my driving test and I thought I'd failed. But so if you try to go into reverse at this sort of speed, this is what happens. You see, you just get a loud grinding noise and it doesn't go into reverse. You won't allow you to go into reverse. So don't worry about going into reverse by mistake. This happened to me on my test when I was trying to go into gear 4. So I was aiming for gear 4, but I went pushed too far to the right and I went like that and then made lots of noise, and I thought, okay, I failed now. But luckily, the car doesn't allow you to go into reverse. Well, most cars I've driven anyway, doesn't allow you to go into reverse at those sort of speeds. So that way, you're not gonna go into reverse. If you do find yourself doing too much like that, just remember gear 4, when you're trying to go into gear 4, let's say you're trying to go from gear 3 to gear 4, just straight down is gear 4 without moving it too far left or too far right. It's going to go into gear 4.